You walk into any barn, and when they find out what you do, their eyes light up like Christmas morning. Oh my God, you're aerial fighter, that's so cool, want to touch your hands, ask about your training, hear war stories from inside the octagon. You're living the dream, right? The ultimate badass, the modern gladiator that every little boy pretends to be shadowboxing in his bedroom. Mirror throwing punches like Tyson in his prime. Everyone sees the glory. The sold-out arenas, 20,000 people screaming your name, Joe Rogan making you sound like a superhero. Championship belts gleaming under blinding lights, they see the highlight reels, the knockouts going viral, the victory celebrations, arms raised high, Instagram posts with exotic cars, designer clothes, beautiful women, the lifestyle that screams, I made it. But what if it told you that beneath all that spectacle, behind every single moment of that manufactured glory, it's a daily nightmare you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy? What if it told you the life everyone thinks they want is actually a prison sentence disguised as a dream job? Even Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, the guy who had everything, fame, fortune, fear from every heavyweight in the world, ended up broken, bankrupt, admitting that boxing destroyed his life more than Itver saved it. See, the world sees 30 minutes of octagon time spread across maybe 3 fights a year, and they think they understand your entire existence. They watch you throw leather for 15 or 25 minutes. See you get your hand raised or your face bloodied, and they think that's your life. They have no clue about the 8,700 hours of your year that nobody talks about, nobody films, nobody celebrates. Tyson once said that he hated boxing, that it was just something he was good at, not something he loved. Imagine being the best in the world at something you hate, and that's the reality for most fighters.
The truth is, being a UFC fighter isn't about those moments when the crowd goes wild. It's about the moments when you're alone at 5 a.m. dragging your broken body to the gym because you literally have no other choice. It's about the moments when you're staring at your reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering if you'll recognize yourself in 5 years. It's about the moments when you realize that the dream everyone envies is slowly killing you from the inside out. Think about Chuck Liddell, the guy who defined what it meant to be a UFC superstar. He was knocking people unconscious when the sport was still finding its identity, making millions, living like a rock star, but by the end of his career, he was getting knocked out by guys who wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes with him. In his prime, his chin was gone, his reflexes shot. This body betrayed him. On the biggest stage, he went from being the most feared man in the light heavyweight division to someone people felt sorry for watching fight. And that's just the beginning, because what they don't show you is the grinding poverty most fighters live in. The guys making $12,000. I'll show $12,000 to win if they're lucky, sleeping on couches between camps, eating ramen noodles, while their bodies break down from the constant punishment, the CTE creeping in with every sparring session, every hard shot you take in the gym. The headaches that start small and grow into migraines that make you want to put your fist through a wall. The memory lapses that begin as little things, forgetting where you put your keys or blanking on someone's name, but slowly becoming something darker, something that makes you wonder if you'll remember your own child. Ren's faces in 20 years. That oppression that hits between fights when the adrenaline fades and you're left alone with the damage you've done to yourself for other people's entertainment. The relationships that crumble because they're too tired from training or too banged up from fighting to be present for the people who actually matter. The wives who'll ave because they can't watch you destroy yourself anymore. The kids who stop asking daddy to play because they know you're too sore to get down on the floor with them. The friends who drift away because all you can talk about is fighting, and all they want to talk about is literally anything. Isolation that comes with being a professional athlete in a sport where your job is to hurt people and get hurt in return, where every conversation becomes about your next fight, your last fight, your injuries, your diet, your training camp. Like you're not a complete human being, but just a collection of body parts and techniques designed to inflict and absorb punishment. You're ready for this because once you see behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. The magic trick loses its power when you know how. 'Tis done, and the brutal reality of professional fighting is the darkest magic trick of all. Every morning, your body screams before you even open your eyes. I'm not talking about being a little sore after a good workout at the gym. I'm talking about the kind of pain that makes you question whether you're actually awake or trapped in some kind of torture dream. Your muscles ache like they've been beaten raw with hammers, and the smallest movement, reaching for a glass of water, turning over in bed, even breathing too deeply, feels like climbing Mount Everest with broken ribs. Let me paint you a picture of what your typical morning looks like. The alarm goes off at 5 a.m., but you've been awake for the past 2 hours because the pain in your back won't let you sleep. You try to sit up, and your spine feels like it's made of broken glass. Your neck is so stiff, you can't turn your head to the left without wincing. Your right shoulder, the one you dislocated 3 months ago, throbs with every heartbeat. This is the reality that Chuck Liddell woke up to every single day during his fighting career. A body that was systematically destroying itself in the name of entertainment. You stumble to the bathroom, and that's when you get your first look at yourself in the mirror. Your face is a roadmap of violence. There's a cut above your left eyebrow that's trying to heal, but keeps reopening during sparring. Your nose, which has been broken so many times you've lost count, is slightly crooked and makes breathing feel like sucking air through a cocktail straw. The constant headaches from repeated concussions blur your vision and make simple conversations feel like solving advanced calculus while someone's hitting you with a sledgehammer. Think about what happened to Gary Goodridge, the guy who threw some of the most devastating punches in early UFC history. He was a beast, a machine built for destruction. But years later, he can barely form coherent sentences, his speech slurred beyond recognition, his memory shot to hell. He's living proof that every punch you take, every hard sparring session, every time you get your bell rung, is a withdrawal from a bank account you can never deposit back into. Your hands are the worst part. They're gnarled and swollen, knuckles permanently enlarged from thousands upon thousands of punches against heavy bags, focus mitts, and human faces. The arthritis has already started setting in, and you're only 28 years old. Simple tasks like buttoning your shirt or opening a jar become exercises in frustration and pain. You watch your girlfriend struggle to hold back tears when you can't even grip her hand properly anymore. Remember when we used to watch Mike Tyson throw those devastating hooks? Those hands that could end a fight with one punch are now so damaged that he can barely sign autographs without pain. The same weapons that made him the most feared man on the planet became his greatest burden. He's talked about how his hands hurt constantly, how the very tools that brought him fame and fortune now serve as daily reminders of what he sacrificed. But here's the thing that really gets to you. This isn't temporary. This isn't the satisfying soreness of a good workout that goes away after a hot shower and a good meal. This is the deep, gnawing pain of a machine pushed beyond its limits, day after day, year after year. Your body is breaking down faster than it can repair itself, and you're not even 30 yet. The injuries pile up like unpaid bills. Your medical folder is thicker than a phone book. Torn ligaments, fractured ribs, herniated discs, separated shoulders, broken orbital bones. The surgery scars across your body tell the story of a war that never ends, because the moment you heal from one injury, you're back in the gym creating new ones. You've had 3 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder reconstructions, and a metal plate in your jaw from where that Brazilian kid caught you with a perfect uppercut. Look at what happened to Tito Ortiz, one of the biggest stars in UFC history. The guy was a machine, a wrestling powerhouse who could take anyone down and pound them into submission. But his body betrayed him. His back gave out, requiring multiple surgeries. His neck was so damaged he could barely turn his head. By the end of his career, he was a shell of his former self, winning fights on heart alone because his body had nothing left to give. Your joints creak like old floorboards in a haunted house. Your shoulders dislocate so regularly that you've learned to pop them back in place mid-fight. The crowd thinks it's badass, but you know it's just another sign that your body is falling apart. Getting out of bed feels like assembling furniture without instructions, trying to figure out which parts still work and which ones are just along for the ride. The concussions are the scariest part. You try not to think about them, but they're always there, lurking in the back of your mind like a ticking time bomb. You feel your memory slipping. You forget conversations you had yesterday, lose track of what you were saying mid-sentence, stand in the grocery store staring at shelves like you've never seen food before. Your speech slurs slightly after particularly brutal training sessions, and you catch yourself repeating the same stories to the same people. Think about Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer who ever lived. The man who could float like a butterfly and sting like a bee ended up barely able to speak above a whisper, his hands shaking uncontrollably, his brilliant mind trapped in a body that Parkinson's disease had ravaged. The same sport that made him the most famous athlete in the world slowly stole his voice, his mobility, his very essence. This is your reality every single day. Not the 15 minutes of glory in the octagon, but the 23 hours and 45 minutes of living in a body that's systematically destroying itself. And the worst part? You have to smile and pretend it's all worth it. Because admitting the truth would mean admitting that you've made a terrible mistake with your life. Mentally, it's a war zone that makes the physical octagon look like a children's playground. The pressure to perform doesn't just crush your soul, it devours it slowly, bite by bite, until you're not sure who you are anymore outside of the violence. You lie awake at 3 a.m., your mind racing with scenarios of failure, replaying every mistake from your last fight until you want to scream into your pillow just to make the thoughts stop. Let me tell you about the anxiety. It's not the normal nervousness before a big presentation at work or a first date. It's the kind of crushing, suffocating fear that makes your chest feel like it's being squeezed by a hydraulic press. You wake up in cold sweats, your heart pounding like you've just run a marathon, because your subconscious mind was fighting imaginary opponents all night long. Mike Tyson used to talk about how he would throw up before fights, how the fear would consume him completely. This is a man who could knock out heavyweights with one punch, and he was terrified every single time he stepped into the ring. The fear of failure gnaws at your mind 24/7, because in this sport, failure isn't just losing a game or missing a promotion. Failure is losing violently, publicly, and permanently. One bad knockout can end your career and leave you with brain damage that lasts forever. You've seen guys get knocked out so badly they forgot their own names, wandering around the octagon like lost children, while 20,000 people watch and millions more see it on replay. Think about what happened to Chuck Liddell in his final fights. The guy who used to walk through punches like they were mosquito bites was getting dropped by shots that wouldn't have fazed him in his prime. You could see it in his eyes, the confusion, the fear, the realization that his body was betraying him in front of the world. That's the nightmare that haunts every fighter's sleep. The moment when you realize you're not who you used to be, but you're still standing in there taking punishment. You feel alone even in a crowded locker room, surrounded by teammates who are simultaneously your only support system and your direct competition for limited opportunities. You can't fully trust anyone because everyone wants what you have, and you can't show weakness because weakness gets you cut from the roster. So you put on a mask, pretend everything's fine, joke around with the guys while your mind is screaming for help. The isolation is suffocating. While your friends from high school are building normal lives, getting married, buying houses, having kids, going to barbecues on weekends, you're living like a monk, sacrificing everything for a sport that chews up fighters and spits them out broken. You miss birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas dinners, your nephew's first steps, your grandfather's funeral. Everything takes a backseat to training, to fighting, to the relentless pursuit of something that might not even exist. Look at what happened to Ronda Rousey after Holly Holm knocked her out. She went from being the most dominant female fighter in the world to someone who couldn't even watch her own fights back. She talked about having suicidal thoughts, about feeling like her entire identity was tied to winning. And when that was taken away, she didn't know who she was anymore. That's the dark side of being a fighter. Your entire sense of self becomes wrapped up in violence and victory. Your relationships crumble under the pressure. Your girlfriend leaves because she can't handle watching you come home bloodied and broken every day. Your family walks on eggshells around you because they never know which version of you is going to walk through the door. The confident warrior or the broken man questioning everything. You push people away because it's easier than explaining why you can't be present, why you're always thinking about the next fight, why you flinch when people touch you unexpectedly. The weight cuts are psychological torture disguised as preparation. For 8 weeks before every fight, you turn yourself into a walking skeleton. You dehydrate yourself to the point of organ failure, sitting in saunas for hours while your body begs for water. You hallucinate from dehydration, your skin turns gray, Your lips crack and bleed, and you become a hollow shell of yourself. All so you can make an arbitrary weight limit that has nothing to do with actual fighting ability. During these cuts, you become a different person. You snap at loved ones over nothing, cry at commercials, stare at food pictures on your phone like they're pornography. You dream about cheeseburgers and wake up hating yourself for it. The mental game of denying yourself basic human needs while maintaining the facade of being a professional athlete is perhaps the cruelest joke of all. Think about what Conor McGregor went through during his weight cuts down to featherweight. The guy looked like a concentration camp survivor. His cheeks sunken, his eyes hollow. He would talk about how cutting weight was harder than the actual fight, how it broke him down mentally before he even stepped into the octagon. And this is a man who's known for his mental toughness, his unshakable confidence. Depression creeps in like fog rolling over a city. It starts small. Maybe you don't laugh as much at jokes, maybe you don't enjoy your favorite movies anymore. But it grows until everything feels gray and pointless. You question why you're doing this, what the point is, whether anyone would miss you if you just disappeared. The sport that was supposed to make you feel alive slowly drains the life out of you. You can't talk about it because fighters don't get depressed. Fighters are warriors, gladiators, superhuman specimens who overcome everything through sheer willpower. Admitting you're struggling mentally is like admitting you're not cut out for this life. So you suffer in silence, pretending everything is fine while your mind slowly crumbles like a sandcastle in a hurricane. The worst part is that you start to lose yourself completely. You become so focused on being a fighter that you forget who you were before you started throwing punches for money. Your entire identity becomes wrapped up in wins and losses, in what strangers think of your performance, in whether some promoter thinks you're worth investing in. You look in the mirror and see a stranger wearing your face, and you can't remember when the transformation happened. Despite all the sacrifices, all the pain, all the mental anguish, the paycheck is never guaranteed. You worry about the next contract, the next fight, the next opportunity, because the career you dreamed of could end with one wrong step, one bad referee decision, or one perfectly timed punch from a kid half your age who's hungrier than you've ever been. Let me break down the financial reality that nobody talks about. Sure, you might get $50,000 for a fight, and to most people that sounds like easy money for 20 minutes of work. But what they don't see is the 8-week training camp that leads up to that fight, where you're basically working a full-time job for free. You're in the gym 6 hours a day, paying for coaches, training partners, nutritionists, massage therapists, and physical therapists out of your own pocket. Your training camp costs run about $15,000 minimum. That's before taxes, before your manager takes his 20%, before your agent takes his 10%. So that $50,000 purse suddenly becomes about $25,000 for 3 months of the most intensive work you've ever done in your life. Break that down hourly, and you're making less than a McDonald's manager. Think about Mike Tyson, who made over $300 million during his career. $300 million. That's more money than most people could spend in 10 lifetimes. But he ended up filing for bankruptcy, broke and owing millions to the IRS. How does that happen? Because in fighting, the money comes fast and leaves faster. You're making millions one day and broke the next, because you never learned how to handle money and everyone around you is taking their cut. You're an independent contractor with no benefits, no pension, no job security, no health insurance. While NFL players have guaranteed contracts and comprehensive health care, you pay for your own insurance, if you can even get it. Most insurance companies won't cover professional fighters because we're considered too high risk. A single injury can cost you $50,000 in medical bills and 6 months of lost income while you heal. You fight hurt because you literally can't afford not to. That knee injury that needs surgery? You tape it up and hope it holds together for 15 more minutes, because missing a fight means missing a paycheck, and missing a paycheck means you can't pay rent. You fought with broken ribs, torn ligaments, and concussions because saying no to a fight means saying no to feeding your family. Look at what happened to Ken Shamrock, one of the pioneers of mixed martial arts. The guy was a legend, one of the first superstars of the UFC. But he kept fighting long past his prime, getting knocked out by guys who wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes with him in his heyday. Why? Because he needed the money. He had no other skills, no other source of income, and fighting was the only thing he knew how to do. The career span is brutally short. You're considered a prospect at 22, hitting your prime at 27, and ancient at 35. You watch younger, hungrier fighters climb the ranks while your body betrays you, knowing that every fight could be your last chance to secure your financial future. But here's the cruel joke. Most fighters never make enough money to actually secure their future. You're always one fight away from financial stability, and that one fight never comes. You see guys who were headlining pay-per-view events working construction jobs 5 years later because they never learned how to manage money or invested in anything besides their next fight. The sport has a way of making you feel rich for brief moments while keeping you poor for the long haul. You buy the nice car, the expensive watch, the designer clothes because you need to maintain the image, but meanwhile, your bank account is hemorrhaging money. Think about Evander Holyfield, a guy who made over $200 million during his career. He had everything: multiple world championships, respect from his peers, fame that transcended the sport. But he ended up losing it all. His mansion foreclosed on, his assets seized. He had to keep fighting into his 40s, not because he loved the sport, but because he was broke and desperate. Sponsorship deals are a joke compared to other sports. While NBA players sign $100 million shoe deals, you're fighting for a few $1,000s to wear a logo on your shorts. The UFC's exclusive uniform deal means you can't even capitalize on your own popularity and hard work. You build a following, create a brand, develop a fan base, and then watch other people profit from it, while you get a flat rate that barely covers your gym membership. The uncertainty is the killer. You never know when your next fight will be, who it will be against, or how much you'll make. You can't plan for the future because you don't know if you'll have a future. Retirement isn't a gradual transition. It's a sudden, violent end that usually comes after a devastating loss that leaves you questioning everything you've ever worked for. You watch your friends build equity in houses, invest in retirement accounts, develop skills that will serve them for decades. Meanwhile, you're pouring everything into a skill set that has an expiration date stamped on it. Fighting is like being a professional athlete in a sport where the average career lasts 3 years, and the average lifetime earnings wouldn't buy you a modest house in most cities. Think about Mike Tyson's words when he reflected on his career. "I hate boxing, but it's what I'm good at." Here's a man who was the most feared heavyweight in the world, who made hundreds of millions of dollars, who achieved everything a fighter could dream of achieving, and yet he hated the very thing that made him famous. That's the paradox of being a professional fighter. You become great at something that slowly destroys you. The truth is, being a UFC fighter means choosing to live with constant pain, perpetual stress, and the knowledge that you're one concussion away from permanent brain damage, all while the world sees only the 30 minutes you spend in the octagon, not the thousands of hours of suffering that make those moments possible. It means trading your future for a present that's more nightmare than dream. Look at Chuck Liddell now, years after his retirement. The guy who used to knock people unconscious with his bare hands struggles with basic cognitive functions. His speech is slurred, his memory is shot, and he's living proof that every punch you take stays with you forever. He'll tell you it was worth it, that he'd do it all again, but you can see in his eyes that he's paying a price that no amount of money or fame can justify. You want to know what the real tragedy is? Most fighters know all of this. They know the odds, they know the risks, they know the financial realities. But they do it anyway because they love the art of fighting, because they believe they're different, because they'd rather die pursuing their dream than live regretting they never tried. That's simultaneously the most beautiful and most heartbreaking thing about this sport. The retired fighters, the ones who made it out with their minds and bodies relatively intact, they'll tell you the same thing. It was worth it for the experiences, for the lessons learned, for the person they became. But they'll also tell you that if they had to do it again, knowing what they know now, they might choose differently. Think about what happened to Gary Goodridge, the guy who threw some of the most devastating punches in early UFC history. He can barely speak now, his brain so damaged from years of fighting that he needs constant care. He's a shadow of the warrior he once was, a reminder that this sport takes everything from you and rarely gives anything back that lasts. Could you really handle trading your long-term health, your financial security, and your peace of mind for the fleeting chance at glory? Could you smile for the cameras while your body screams in agony and your bank account runs dry between fights? Could you maintain the facade of being a warrior while your mind slowly crumbles under the pressure? The next time you watch a UFC event, remember this conversation. Remember that you're not just watching a sport. You're watching human beings destroy themselves for your entertainment, one punch at a time. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have a little more appreciation for the sacrifice these fighters make every time they step into that octagon. Because at the end of the day, being a UFC fighter doesn't suck because of the fighting. It sucks because of everything else. The pain, the pressure, the poverty, the uncertainty, the slow destruction of everything you used to be. The fighting is the easy part. Living with the consequences is what breaks you. So the next time someone tells you they want to be a UFC fighter, share this story with them. Tell them about Mike Tyson hating boxing, about Chuck Liddell's slurred speech, about Gary Goodridge's damaged brain. Let them know what they're really signing up for. Because the dream of being a fighter is beautiful, but the reality of being one is a nightmare that most people aren't prepared to live. Most people will never heart this story because it's too uncomfortable, too real, too far from the fantasy they want to believe. Well, if you're ready to see the truth behind the blood and the glory, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because GRINDFLIX is about to take you deeper into the machine than anyone else dares to go. We're talking exclusive interviews with fighters who've been blacklisted by the UFC, financial breakdowns that'll make your jaw drop, medical reports that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about combat sports. And trust me, once you start this journey with us, you'll never look at a fight the same way again. So smash that subscribe button, turn on all notifications, and welcome to GRINDFLIX, where we don't just show you the grind, we show you what the grind really costs.